Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for downloading the Engaging Audiences in Renewable Energy webinar recording. Today, we're going to look together at some data and insights and practical recommendation on how you can engage with renewable energy audiences of people interested in renewable energies based on a social listening and AI study that we've done earlier this year. My name is Serena. I am the managing director at ACT, or Activate Conscious Thinking. And today with me presenting, we have Naya, our market research specialist, will take us through the insights and data from the renewable, how to engage with renewable energies audiences report. And then we have Bella, our marketing manager, that will show us how we can implement Naya's recommendation. Who we are ACT. We are a marketing and communication agencies that specializes on working with brands and companies that they are planet focused. We specifically work with green tech companies, of course, renewable energy, sustainable construction and agriculture, and also NGOs. We've been doing this for nearly a decade now. And the reason why I decided to put this webinar together, it came from a need of our audiences in the renewable energy space to understand a little bit more on how they can engage and keep their potential customers engaged. So what we'll cover today, as we said, we are going to look at some data coming from the report that we've done earlier this year. And we're splitting this into 4 different segments. The first segment will be understanding our audience preferences, and this goes into keywords, what kind of topics they're looking at according to where in the buying cycle they are. And on top of that, we will build a way of crafting content that it drives them to stay engaged and cut through the noise of the overload of information that we find on the net. Next, we're going into how does that translate into social media and how we maximize for impact. And lastly, we're going to look at how we optimize this content in a long form and the short form. So now that we've done the covering, let's get into the fun part. Naya, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Serena. So I'll start by setting up the context that the key focus here for our study is content marketing. And how to market to our audience in the renewable energy industry. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit more about how I went about doing that, because that's the biggest question I get every time. And it's usually by using online public data from the internet. Just to paint a picture for everyone here. You pick up your phone, we interact with your Instagram. You search something on Google. Now that's basically throughout the day, and it's become a part of our everyday lives with all our online interactions, which forms valuable data points for insights. Which brings me to my next point, that for this report, we looked at a total of 5 million online data points. Now that's anywhere from a variety of sources like TikTok, IG, YouTube, even blogs and articles. So all of that combined. And with the use of AI, it's helped me harness and make sense of all this large amount of data. I'd like to make a key distinction that our report has not been AI generated, and we use AI tools to help us make sense of the data. So there's a big human curation aspect to it that we're going to present today as insights. Now, with that, let's jump straight into our report recap. Okay, before we begin, the term renewable energy, let's start by clarifying what we mean by renewable energy. And for the purpose of this study, it's interchangeable with sustainable, alternative, green or clean energy, clean tech, and even examples, more specific examples include solar and geothermal energy. We also look at very popular topics such as fossil fuel divestment. Now, because of that, this also kind of reflects renewable energy. And our key exclusions are non-energy aspects of sustainability, which is fast fashion. So that's not within the scope of our study. And in the next slide, I'll hand over the stages of our content creation to our marketing manager, Bella.
Cool. Hi, everyone. So we've broken down the funnel into 3 primary phases to help people better understand how to break up their content marketing and focus on each individual aspect to ensure that their outcome is kind of the best outcome that they can ensure. So the 3 phases are understand, ideate, and optimize. With understand, we are looking at the audience interests and the customer journey, so the beginning of the buying cycle. With ideate, you're crafting content that kind of speaks to those preferences and how to respond where they are in the buying cycle to try and help them move them through it a little bit quicker or maybe a little bit more effectively. And then with optimize, you're looking at the content that you've kind of thought of and ideated, and you're seeing how to optimize it to platform length or timing specifics, just to make sure that you get the best outcomes.
So now that we have painted the general picture, let's start from the very beginning. As we usually do when we're looking at strategizing, whether it's marketing, campaigns, content, branding, or messaging, we really have to sit down and understand where our audience comes from, what do they think about, what words do they use, so that we can tailor whichever effort we're about to make towards what they need. So Naya, take us through the very first part of this report.
Thank you, Serena. Let's start off with our first insight here, and it's on Google searches. We're trying to understand our renewable energy audience, and after analyzing a large set of renewable energy related Google search terms, that's keywords, we found that solar energy is the clear type of sustainable energy on people's mind. Like, it's the key one that reflects renewable energy. Now, take a look on the left side of the slide. Within the same search keywords, I categorize these top Google search keywords according to user search intent. What does search intent mean? It's why somebody types a specific keyword into a search engine, which reveals their true purpose. Now, whether or not they're trying to find more information, that's the first one, the awareness stage, the one in yellow, which reflects informational purpose. Researching a product, which is consideration, which reflects commercial. Or lastly, conversion, which points to a more transactional purpose. So all of this aligns into the volume that the keywords fall into. So the most number of keywords are usually in awareness stage. People are just trying to find out more. And towards the end, you get the key ones that actually point to a particular transaction. That's why it's more important for businesses to understand whether or not someone's purchasing their product. Now, on the right of the same slide, by categorizing these keywords into 3 search intent types, we found that solar energy, when compared to wind, it has more transactional keywords. Now, this means that there is a stronger purchasing intent for solar energy than compared to wind. And which makes sense because, say I'm a consumer, I always hear more about solar energy in our everyday life. I see more of it. So in a way that makes sense. Okay, and with that, I'll hand over our practical recommendations to Bella.
Cool. So what we tried to do is find an example of how to apply kind of content marketing practices to better educate your audience around solar energy specifically, seeing as Naya's research kind of indicated that. And what we've done here is choose an example that I thought was really interesting. It's a static image, but it's for a campaign that's raising awareness around land restoration. And why I thought it was quite impactful is because it's broken down this concept and made it relatable to different audiences by drawing on people from Gen Z by using this kind of catchy headline that's quite familiar to Gen Z people, which is okay boomer, so referring to millennials or the older generation, and kind of comparing these two instances of the moon landing, which was very impactful to the older generation, to reforestation, which is something that's heavily on the minds of our generation, and very much kind of saying that you had this amazing event that took place during your heyday or your time, and this is something that we're trying to achieve in our heyday and our time. So let's see how we can use that momentum. And the way that it's broken this down is by having this recognizable headline that captures everyone's attention. It's an event or a context that people can relate to. The visual's quite eye-catching because it's got the moon landing on the left and then this beautiful scenery on the right. And then ultimately there's a hashtag or a call to action that encourages everyone to join a community or be motivated to join a bigger action.
Okay. Now that we went through the very beginning of our process, which is understanding where our audience is and what to think about, how certain type of questions reflect in different stages of the buying cycle, let's look at how we can leverage that information to create content that catches the right type of people into the right journey. So next, we're going to look at some more insights and data that will show us how to get this process started.
Thank you, Serena. I'll start off with long form content. And in this stage, we focus on coming up with popular content ideas that really engage our audience. I'm sure everyone's here faced with the question, what do I write about? What angle or topic should I write about? And we have data-driven insights to provide answers to that. So I looked at some of the most engaged content narratives and outlined the top 2 narratives. As you can see, renewable energy, the green bar on the left, renewable energy as the winner, came up on top. Now, what is this narrative about? It's about renewable energy being depicted in a champion kind of way. I see lots of words, headlines on booms. It's unbeatable. It's unstoppable. So I've concluded that this is the narrative that most resonates with our audience. Additionally, I found that the second top narrative, political involvement in renewable energy. Now, this topic is on legal backing from officials, which enhances the credibility of your content. And it does so by incorporating support from legislation. So a lot of government officials and all of that. So readers are especially interested in seeing these formal endorsements and validation that renewable energy is becoming legit. It's not just a pipe dream. Next slide, please. Okay, next, now that we know topics to write about, how should we frame this topic? That's what brings us into motifs. And motifs here, I have 2 key insights, 2 key points. And the first one is a study of the top emojis that people are using to talk about renewable energy online. Now, while the study is on top emojis, it doesn't indicate that this is the type of emoji you have to use, but more so, it reflects the emotional context in discussions. So as you can see in the word cloud here, the biggest emojis are the thunderbolt, the sun, stars, shining, nature. So I've concluded that as positivity and brightness are ways to frame your content. And on the right, we found that feelings of admiration, the 80%, it's so strong. So businesses should create content that inspires, brings out this admiration, as opposed to disgust, which is the second highest, but at a very low number of 10 compared to admiration, 10%. And I'm going to hand it to Bella to explain some practical recommendations on this.
So what I thought was particularly kind of interesting around that last insight was there's been this narrative for years in our industry that climate anxiety is the best way to motivate people to action. So now kind of seeing stats to point otherwise seeing admiration as a major way of gaining traction or getting people interested kind of points to the opposite, where you want to be creating a sense of climate optimism. So this is actually a long form article that we found in a kind of reputable online source. And for me, it very much created a sense of admiration because of how the story kind of unfolds. To give you some context, it's about a man who started and created a forest where he lived, and he did this despite lots of trials and tribulations. So the headline already kind of foregrounds this by saying the man who planted a tree and grew a whole family of forests, which in itself is a feat, because in my mind a forest is huge, and he dedicated so much time to probably doing so, because also the life cycle of a tree is long. Following on from that, there's this image which is shot from a low angle, which from a psychological kind of perspective, this is done to establish a human or a person as authoritative and powerful, so also creating a sense of admiration. And then beyond that, the opening paragraph sets up this context that he bought a patch of land, and despite like these challenges that kind of came with people calling him crazy, he was able to found or father this entire forest. So again, furthering this narrative that he is someone to be admired, and the story is something very impactful. So just a good example.
So now that we looked at the long form content, what are the popular short form social media content ideas that we can use?
Thank you, Serena. So now that we talked about long form, short form here indicates controversy as the key insight. We looked at about 20,000 of the most engaged videos on YouTube, popular video platform, as everyone knows, covering very diverse renewable energy topics. And we found that controversy dominates social media. We discovered that the most engaged videos, they provoke this controversy. So you can see some examples, real life examples of YouTube videos are on debunking myths, protests. These are kind of the examples, and implies that your social media audience is very intrigued whenever they know some controversy arises to do with renewable energy. Now, next we will be showing a video.
Okay, so next that we'll show you is an example of a video that it really nailed it when it came to controversy, and it did use sarcasm and humor, going back to what we said before, to keep the humor and the spirit high. This is a very strong video. I just want to say that there is absolutely no political pertinence to this. There's nothing that we believe or don't believe into. It's just that this example we're about to show, it's such a great way to shake up the spirits, and it's leaving an emotion, whether it's a positive or is a angry one, it does leave one. So let's go and have a quick look of a best way of inspiring controversy.
Have you noticed that the world's on fire? Record heat waves? Does that worry you? Well, it should, because this climate thing is your problem. And at Big Oil, we've made sure it's not ours.
40 years ago, when our own scientists predicted that burning fossil fuels could lead to catastrophic effects, we spent billions to sweep it under the rug. No one needs to know that.
We gave money to PR firms, marketers, invested in political campaigns.
A lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax.
Love that guy. Today, he's helping us do even more, rolling back all those fossil fuel regulations.
At Big Oil, we're going to be fine. But you might want to start a compost pile or stop exhaling so much carbon dioxide.
You got a lot of work to do, because your kids are going to need it. Here's to you, President Trump.
All of this with the global warming, and a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax.
Right. So I hope that that video created some sort of a feeling, whether it's a good one or the bad one. I just want to know how you feel. But we looked at videos as a form of short form content. What happens with the visuals that they do supplement our posts or our write-ups. Let's take a look at what that looks like from a static visual standpoint.
Thank you, Serena. So I have two key insights on renewable energy visuals. Let's start from the left one, the first one. So I found that one of the most popular topics on social media relates to formal speaking engagements. And the way I identified that was through AI-powered data tool that helped pick out objects detected on images. So the top objects detected were podiums, speakers, lasers, business persons, and microphones on the most frequently detected objects. Now, it's common on social media to use visual evidence to increase credibility of renewable energy initiatives. But on short form content, social media, we feel that this type of validation is potentially saturated, and therefore we urge businesses to avoid relying on too much of this type of validation. Similarly, we want businesses to move beyond wind energy visuals, and that leads me to the second insight on the right here. Businesses and individuals that are involved in renewable energy usually hold the belief that the audience associates wind energy with sustainable practices. However, and as you can see in the images shown in the squares on the screen, it always has a significant prominent windmill in the background. However, it's important to be cautious regarding using this too much, these windmill motifs, as they're already everywhere on social media. So we want businesses to try to differentiate from that. Now, next slide, please. To Bella.
Cool. So we decided to draw on a social media piece that we'd actually created a couple of months ago to be able to illustrate this point around wind energy being something of the past, and some suggestions as how we could kind of move forwards using other examples of renewable energy. So I'm going to work from the left of the screen where the actual post is housed on LinkedIn to the carousel, and then there's some short format content tips and tricks for you to look at on your own accord. So how we broke down this content was we started with a headline that kind of, we hope, captured the audience's attention because it was a little bit controversial or provocative in what it was asking. With people who can't see, it's wind energy visuals as the poster child for renewable energy. It then goes into giving an example or giving an explanation as to why this visual has become synonymous with renewable energy in itself. In the carousel itself, we've kind of looked at specific how you can tell whether your imagery is becoming stagnant. So we've given you some examples as to look out for. And if this is the case, post this, we've given you some examples of what to replace it with. So this could go from anything from hydropower to solar energy, community initiatives, electric vehicles, anything that kind of feels relevant for your industry. And it gives you some examples as to why it could be relevant as well. So yeah, this is how we thought it could be a nice way of illustrating something in the renewable energy space without relying too heavily on wind energy.
And we get to the end, or nearly the end of this section. So we have looked into the ideation and the understanding of what our audience wants. We went through different ideas and topics and how to curate both content and visuals to make it the most appealing. But what about optimizing? We all know that in the age and time where we have an information overload, time is the essence, and every tip to do it at the best time or in the best content or the best channel, it's gold. So let's take a look at what our audiences prefer and how we can incorporate that in our ongoing content strategies.
Thank you, Serena. So I have 3 key tips here for optimizing our blog articles, long form content. And the first one is on headlines. we want you to use questions as headlines. So as you can see, when you compare the types of headlines from how-to, interviews, infographics, when trying to use curiosity, that's when your audience is the most engaged. So use that. Second one is to deal with very specific things. When should you publish and what time? Oh, sorry. And how long should your article be? So we advise that businesses aim for Saturday publications, and the articles, they range should be from 2,000 to 3,000 words. Lastly, it's to do with how to leverage different platforms for different types of content. And when comparing among 3 platforms, now that's Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit, use longer content of about 10,000 words for Twitter when compared to the other 2 platforms. Just to be clear, we're not using the body of the tweet, but more so sharing links of these long form content on these social media platforms. Next slide, please.
Cool. So this is a fun little way that we thought we would show you how to actually test whether social media or posts could be effective or well received by your audiences. So we're playing an internal little game where we're comparing a post that Serena did, a post that Naya did, and a post that I did, all relating to the same subject matter, and seeing how we applied our own knowledge to this kind of example, and then seeing who won or whose post performed the best at the end of it. So the criteria that we're going to be looking at is an eye-catching headline, tools used to break up the body, a call to action, and what kind of assisting media they used. So let's see the first one. We have option 1, Serena. So what we can see here is that she did use a headline that was eye-catching because it's also a question. There's an emoji used, which also helps your eye break up the text a little bit. She's kind of dropped very impressive stats or data in the body of the content, and had a very distinct call to action with downloading the report. And the visual is quite eye-catching because it's also very much aligned with our brand and how we want to market this specific report. So this is the first option. Think about it. Followed by option 2, we've got my thing. You'll see that I have a little bit of anxiety surrounding posting on LinkedIn, hence my expose that I dropped out of the pattern of posting. So my personal elements also hopefully added to my impressions because people felt sorry. Beyond that, I broke up the text into bite-sized chunks to make it a little bit more digestible to the eye. I used emojis as well as bolding techniques to make sure that people can kind of see the high-level important information that I wanted to communicate. And then beyond that, I used an image of me in a town that was heavily littered with renewable energy wind turbines. So that was what was relevant there. And then the option 3, we have Naya. And Naya was great because this was an announcement of this being her first report that she'd published with ACT. So already kind of creating a sense of admiration with her audience. She was also great for creating some information around the high level kind of impressive data or stats that she used for the report. She also broke up the text using emojis into bite-sized chunks to make it easier on the eye. Had a very defined call to action, and then went above and beyond and tagged us as well, which is also great for leveraging our audiences or our networks for her benefit in terms of impressions. So, drum roll please, who do we think performed the best? Is it Naya? So, some context as to why Naya performed the best. Other than the impressive social media kind of best practices that she implemented, this was also her first LinkedIn post ever. And for any of you who haven't posted before, now is your chance. LinkedIn will favor you from an algorithmic point of view. So with this being her first post, with the fact that she used active voice, she broke up her text, she used emojis, had an eye-catching visual, and tagged third parties, this meant that her post ranked the highest in terms of impressions and engagement.
we've got to a final summary and closing of what we have learned today. So Naya, give us the headlines.
Thank you, Serena. So taking us back to our process here of content creation, let's look at our key insights from each stage. Starting with the first one, which is understanding who our audience is. Now, what do they care about in renewable energy? And that's solar energy. Now, in addition to that, solar energy is also further along the marketing funnel in terms of commercialization and transaction. So buyers are more likely to purchase solar energy related products when we compare it to wind. Next, we reach the ideation stage. Now that's to do with what to write about, crafting content and narratives that resonate. We divide that into long and short form, with long form focusing on victory themes, champions of progress for renewable energy, and legislative evidence. We also had an insight on using feelings of appreciation and nature, positivity, and brightness related motifs. For short form, it's about controversy to get your audience's energy. So short form again is social media. And we want businesses and individuals to avoid relying too much on official recognition and wind energy related visuals. Try something different. Lastly, it's about optimizing your long form content. We have 3 key tips and tricks. First one is to use questions as headlines to spark curiosity. And second is to publish on Saturdays with articles ranging from 2,000 to 3,000 words. Lastly, when comparing among the 3 platforms of Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit, use longer content of about 10,000 words on Twitter. And again, this is to do with sharing long-form content links on social media. And that brings me to the end of our report insights.
Thank you so much both for the incredible job you've done here. I just want to say thank you again to everyone that is attending. If you haven't downloaded the report yet, you'll see there is a QR code on the screen that will lead you to the full report. The report that you will download, it has a similar format and style on what we've done today. So if you found this useful, please go ahead, download it, and take more of the insights, research, and examples that hopefully will help you and inspire you to create content that diversifies you from your competitors and that will truly engage you with the right people. Right, we are at the end of this. Thank you so much for joining us today. Once again, we are the ACT team, a marketing and communication agency that works only with planet-focused businesses. I am Serena, and today you had the joy to be with Naya and Bella. Thank you so much all for participating. I will see you soon.